Alright, so what I've got in front of me here tonight is going to help a lot of you guys who are doing residential installs. So it always comes down to, should I throw a UniFi system in a customer's house? Should I go with like an ASUS router? Should I go with this or that or whatever? And I like Powerline. If you know how to use Powerline, it's an awesome way to get around a house without having to run any cables. And now Mikrotik has come out with their own power line that uses a standard power line, whatever, 802 format. So it's literally compatible with everything. Now, I've had no problems with these, but just to let you know, power bars cause problems with them because of the metal oxide varistors in them. They seem to filter. They act as filters to kill the signals, which I think is where most people have problems. That and cross-phasing. But I honestly have had about 95% success with these kits, okay? So this is the kit that I'm actually designing right now. So the idea here is we've got a gentleman with a small farmhouse. He's getting fiber across the street at his neighbor's place, and then we are going to fire it across the street with a set of light beams, and then he's going to have his router and his Powerline kit. So we're going to, I'm going to show you guys this cool crap that Mikrotik has, and we're going to start assembling this. And tomorrow, when I go to install it, I'll take some pictures. So I'm not going to release the video tonight. I'm going to release the video tomorrow after I get the pictures so you guys can see this installed. So let's start with the bare bones here. Let's put these guys aside here. Okay. And here we go. So first things first, you need a router. So what did I choose? I chose this Mikrotik Hap AC Lite. It's a cool little kit with 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz. I like it. And it looks sexy. And the cool thing about this too is that it's got this clip on the back. You'll see. You'll see my god-awful plan. Let's see, I need to get a slot screwdriver. I'm going to pop this. I think I got it. Get off, you bugger. There we go. So you can actually screw this into the wall. And then you'll be able to mount this onto it, and then it'll be on the wall like that, nice and tidy. I'm planning to put it up just above the TV stand behind the TV on this guy. And then over here we've got our PoE in, four LAN ports, a USB port which you can do whatever with, like plug in a USB hard drive and do file share or UPS or whatever, right? So that's this part here. I'm going to stick this thing back on here. Why did I even take it off? I think it goes on like that. Yeah, there we go. Alright, so that's going to be the router. And the reason why I chose this router is because it is dual band AC. It's not a monster, so I mean, like, it's not high capacity, but this is the centerpiece. This is like what's going to handle all the routing for the house, but then this is also going to be what's going to be running the access points. Okay? I'm not going to do cap span on this one because I want it to be very simple so that the client can actually do what they need to. So let's look at the next part of this puzzle. I know you're probably itching to see these little Powerline APs, and I know they're not splendid, but they're good enough for a regular house. Okay? So, let's take a look at, here's a little Powerline Master module. This is so friggin' cool, by the way. Alright, so this guy here is the Mikrotik Powerline Pro. The PL751-0GI. This guy here is pretty awesome. It actually has PoE out, which is what we're going to be using to power our router. So you're starting to see where I'm getting with this, right? This is going to be pretty cool. You're going to like this, okay? And I know that many people out there have wanted to see a handy little kit like this. So, you might be seeing what I'm getting at. Look at the screw holes on here, right? So the plan is on the wall. This is going to be towards the floor. And then further up the wall will be our router. So this unit here will not only act as the master for the Powerline kit for the house, but it's also going to be the power supply for the router. So all the customer will see on their wall, up behind their TV, will be this little bad boy right here. So, yes, we can get these here in Canada now. Hi, Tyler. Alright, so, yeah, now let me crack this guy open for you, because, you know, you're probably wondering, I mean, like, you can, Mikrotik stuff's like kit, so you can, like, dismantle it. I need a large filly. Here we go. So to mount this to the wall, you simply take the screw off here, and look at this, by the way. a nice plastic housing, clear plastic housing over top of the AC side of things to keep it all isolated and protected, right? Very nice. They've really thought about things. Look at the isolation on the board here. Just, I really like it. All right, and now I can turn on the Poa output. So, yeah, you've got your 4 screw holes here. See? This guy will mount to the wall around the baseboard. And I'll just run a single cable up to power this guy. And then this also has one Poa out, which I can use to power the CPE on the house. Cool, eh? So, I guess the first thing that we need to do is I'm going to put this guy aside, and we need to program the router. Now, because I'm still in the hardware portion of things, I really feel like it would be unfair to show you this. Let's take a look. These are the little Powerline APs. Isn't that cool? They're so cute. And remember, this is standardized, so if you wanted to use a better product, like, and I'm not saying these aren't good, but you can use like a TP-Link AV500, or the, I think it's the AV800s that are 1 gigabit. Of course, this guy maxes at 600, but either way, you got an Ethernet port. It uses the power line in the house to carry the data signal, so it's actually like having a hardwired device. So the idea is in the middle of the house, this is the AC AP with 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. And then these two little guys will go elsewhere in the house to fill in the gaps in the signal. Isn't that a cool idea? By doing this, we've got full coverage in the house, and everything is centrally managed from this. And if you're rolling these out on a large scale as an ISP, then you can use these with Capsman and control everything in the house from this one router. Bom, bom, bom. That's kind of brilliant, no? Make sure that we're still recording. Yep, we're still recording. Okay. Oh, we got some messages here on my first live stream. Let's see what we got here. Cool. Alright, so I'm going to put these guys aside. Garbage, right? Alright, let's get programming on this. So I'm going to put these little power line adapters aside. We're just going to place them over here. Now, I've got this switch here just because I've got this little tablet here to do the programming on. That's the idea, at least. Alright, so see here, and I'm going to need a power wire for that too, so I'm just going to plug this guy into a random port on here, and get coily cables. Here we go. Put that aside. Move this guy. We're going to need that in a minute. All right, come on, wake up. Hello. There we go. Okay, wake up. There we go. Alright, so we've got Winbox here already. It's already prepped for us. Yeah, I'm trying to think ahead, right? Oh, full screen, fat fingers. Okay, so we got this. We've got our keyboard. Let's get some power to here. No, I'm going to use this one. Thanks, Tyler. Alright. Look at the little cable. Look at the freaking power wire on that. That's huge. Okay, we're going to just plug this one in. I'm going to plug it in right here because we're not going to need this power pack for too long. First things first is we're just going to change this over. Now, because we're going to be powering this via port 1 and the power line kit here, we're going to need to change port 1 so that it's actually LAN and not WAN. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make 5 the WAN port because 5 is PoE out for the CPE. Just makes sense, right? Okay, so let's get some power going. There we go. Alright, so we should be able to log into this guy in just a second. I should get a fat finger pen. Oh, cool, yeah, so it looks like, let's see here, Tyler's actually doing this right now. He's doing this exact same kit. It works well. I mean, like, it's a brilliant concept. I mean, Mikrotik's just coming up with cooler stuff all the time. Alright, let's see here. So I should have this set up for Mikrotik. I'm just going to try to get a DHCP IP off of it. If it's booted up, I should be able to pull an IP off of it. Oh, I'm not... Why am I... Oh. Loose power cord, I guess. There we go. Alright. Just check, make sure I can see that on the camera. Yeah, we're good. I do need to get a better camera. because this camera here is pretty good, but it's not amazing. And I want to get a second camera that can also have zoomed in on here, right? Alright, so look, in Winbox here, we've got, as you can see, the router is showing up. Mikrotik. I'm not going to do any personalizations on this thing right away because I want to keep my client's information confidential, right? Here we go. So we're logging in here. And, oh, the firmware on this is way behind. We'll update that shortly. But first things first, let's just do our work that we need to do on the bridge here. So first things first, we needed to remove the DHCP client from port 1. So I'm going to go to port bridge here, and I'm going to take port 5, and port 5 is going to come out of the bridge. Simple as that. Alright, so it's saying that port 5 here is dynamic. Oh, hold on. Because it's the older firmware, check this out. With the older firmware, I have to actually make this so that it's not a slave. There we go. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to go into the interface here, and I'm going to say none. There. Okay, and we're going to name this as well while we're in here anyway. ETH5 WAN. Or actually, you know what? I will name the, abbreviate the company whose internet is going to be coming into this thing. Alright, cool. So here we go. Alright, so that's set up. Now let's go over to the bridge, and we shouldn't see port 5 in here now. Port 5 is not in there. Great. We're going to move the DHCP client from port 1 over to port 5 now. So port 5 has now become, where is it? Port 5 has now become the internet in, okay? Because again, PoE out, right? Alright, so we're going to go back over to the bridge for a second here. And we're going to add port 1 now as part of this bridge. Booyah. Just like that. Okay, there we go. So now that part's done. So now that we've done the basics on here, I should, let's see here, close all this stuff out. There we go. Let's get the power going on this power box. And, oh, sorry, I jumped the gun. One thing before we continue. There's all sorts of things you can do on these routers to configure them for home use, especially security-wise, but we'll show you that in a minute. Okay, so I need to go to interfaces, and I need to set my WAN interface now as, let's see here, port 5. So I'm just going to click on that and go port 5 instead. There we go. So that's done. Oh, and I'm changing the IP pool on this thing. So I'm going to go to pool first, and we're just going to create a new IP pool, and we're going to call this home. And I'm going to base it on the Mikrotik format. We'll go 80.10 through 192.168.80.254. There we go. Alright, so we've got our new pool in place. Cool. Now let's create our new setting in here on the DHCP server. This is some pretty rudimentary things we're doing here. So we'll go 192.168.80.0/24. That's the CIDR. So what we've done here in the top box here is we've assigned it to a subnet. We're assigning it to 192.168.80.0/24. So that's the entire range in that subnet. Now, what that means is that anything that's utilizing the DHCP functionality of this router will rely on this little box right here for all the settings that it's going to give to the computers. Starting with the gateway, 192.168.80.1. How about the DNS? We're going to do it to that too, 192.168.80.1. There we go. So that's pretty much ready to go. And then this thing will get its DNS settings from the host, which in this case will be a local ISP. Next step, before we actually make the big change, I'm going to add a new second IP here so that when we change it over that it'll work. Here we go. So what I'm doing is, this is the new IP for this bad boy. and that's going to be assigned to the bridge. There we go. So 192.168.80.1/24. Remember, you need the CIDR on the end, otherwise you're in trouble. So that's set up for the bridge, which means that 88.1 can soon go away. And last part here, we need to go to the DHCP server. So I'm just going to click on that, and I'm going to change it to home, which is the new subnet, the new DHCP settings we're going to be using. And I'm going to actually change this as well, just to reflect the new config. There we go. Okay, that is all done. So now, I'm going to close this Winbox window. Oops. I'm going to have to reopen that one now. There we go. Let's minimize that. Okay, let's go to the IP settings here. We're going to go DHCP again. Just refresh the IP address. There we go. And now I should be able to do 80.1. Enter. Now that we're logging in under the new IP address, I can delete the old IP address. Here we go. Boop. Alright, so we'll go to IP, addresses, and we can get rid of 88.1. Goodbye. And I'm going to do the same thing with pools, just to make it simple. So we're going to go over here to IP pools. I hope it didn't connect to the... Oh, you know what? It might have, actually. Sometimes they do silly things like this. Yeah, let's reconnect. Okay. Oops, didn't mean to do that. It's not the first time I've seen that, but I've never actually delved into it. Whatever. We're enjoying our coffee, doing this slowly. So IP services. We're going to go in here now, and I'm going to show you something. When you get these routers, make sure that you disable everything except Winbox and SSH. And I'm going to leave API SSL enabled because the customer is going to love that. And now we can go in here. Here we go. And we can add the subnet that's allowed. So we're going to go 192.168.80.0/24. Perfect. Same thing with the API. 192.168.80.0/24. Cool. Let me know if this is boring, because I'm pretty sure it's boring. Alright. And that should allow it now. I didn't see any firewall rules not allowing that to happen, so let's try one more time. Yeah, we'll sort that after. I've seen this problem with older firmware anyway. Okay, so let's try moving this thing over for power now. So what I'm going to do, let's see here, we'll leave that plugged in, but I'm going to get rid of the power cord now. Let's move this guy over here. It's a beautiful thing about Winbox, by the way, is that you can access it from multiple ways. Okay, so we'll get rid of this. And I need a Ethernet cable. So now we're going to go from here, this PoE out, and we're going to go into here. And now we are powering this from this, which is pretty swanky. Alright, so we'll give this thing a minute to boot up. Something else which I like to do on these guys is enable ROM on, because, or ROM on, whatever you want to pronounce it. You can typically log in and get access to everything if you can only access one device, and if there's IP problems, it'll still work amongst devices and that. Yay. Okay, let's see. I should see both the devices in here too in a minute. Okay, I'm just going to double check something here too. I want to make sure that I'm getting the right connection. Wired connection, wired settings. Let's see if I'm getting the right IP address, because that could be the problem here. Oh, I'm still getting an 88 IP for some reason. That doesn't make any sense. That means that I must have screwed up my settings. Here, let's log back in. Okay, IP pool. Nope, I got the right pool there. IP. Dhcp Server. Yeah. No, everything looks good. I think it's just this lease. For some reason, I'm getting an 88 IP on this thing. So I'll just delete this lease and hopefully it'll come back proper. Anyway, we'll get that in a second. Alright, so it looks like we've got our other device is on here now. So we're just going to go back over here. Where's my Winbox? There it is. Let's pull up Winbox. Okay, so now let's find out what the neighbor here is, the power box unit. So we can go to IP, DHCP server, leases, and we should see, there it is. No, it's showing all these things, so I'm not even sure if this thing actually has an OS on it. It's my first time playing with one. So it looks like it might be dumb, but I'm very cool with that. I am so cool with that. Alright, so if that's the case, we're good there. But now, these guys are smart. So, a little note to anybody who's using these Powerline kits is they don't like power bars. They need to be plugged straight in the wall. But for our lab purposes, I am going to be using that power bar right there, which is probably not great. Now, on the side of these things here, your Powerline kit will have a few LEDs. That's your power. That means that the home network is syncing and active. And then the other one is LAN. So we're going to take this little guy here, and I'm going to plug this one in over here. And hopefully it'll sync up automatically. Usually they're pretty smart about finding each other, especially if there's only two on a circuit. Otherwise, there's a sync button on the back you can push. Alright, so let's give it a minute to boot. Okay, it looks like it's almost booted up. Come on. And I'm not seeing household connectivity. Oh, it's still booting. Wow, these little Powerline things take forever to boot up, man. I'm just watching the LEDs here and it keeps doing stuff. So, it's not... I'm going to say that it looks like it's finally booted up. We're going to sync this, okay? So I'm going to plug the other one in as well. Yeah, I should be able to plug them both in at the same time. Here we go. We'll get them all booted and then we'll sync all three of them at the same time. Because it's just the 3 units. Again, this is going to be the primary AP for the whole house. It's going to be the 2.4/5 gig, so dual band AC AP. And then these little guys are fillers for other parts of the house that don't have as strong of a signal. The goal here is that all 3 devices will have exactly the same SSID and password, which means that any devices that are roaming within the house will see the same SSID and just seamlessly roam through the network. If you want more advanced seamless handoff, I'm not too sure this stuff's capable. Really, do you need it? I don't know. I really don't know. Okay, so let's try syncing this now. So I'm going to push the sync button on here. And now I'm going to push the sync button on the side of these guys. And they should find each other. There we go. I'm hoping that the surge suppressor is not killing my connection here. Sync. Here we go. Go on. Alright, let's try that. Yeah, it doesn't seem to want to sync. These are going to be a little bit different, I'm assuming, than the TP-Link stuff, so. And those are the guys who I typically use for Powerline kits, and they never fail me. I know TP-Link's not a great brand name, but they have not failed me yet with their Powerline kits, so. This is a situation where we need to refer to the manual for a second. Alright, so let's see here. Never be afraid to read. Connect your internet cable to the Ethernet port. From your smartphone, connect to the wireless network. Huh. Okay. So it looks like we actually have to log into these little guys first, according to the manual here. So yeah, I guess what we're going to do is I'm going to plug this little computer directly into the Powerline adapter and get it programmed. That's usually they just sync up, so I'm kind of shocked at that. Hold on. All right, let's plug in. Here we go. So there's the first one. So I'm just going to assume that I need to have my default IP set to 88.99. Yeah, so now I can connect to this guy. Default password on all Mikrotik stuff is blank. Username's admin. I guess I should have mentioned that earlier, but this isn't a Mikrotik tutorial video. It's just showing you guys how you can do Powerline kit stuff. Okay. Refresh. There it is. Okay, so let's try this again. So I think the trick is you have to click leave before you click join. It doesn't say that in the manual. And look at that. You have to reconnect. It's kind of a little wonky, but these things are all running old firmware anyway. So, here we go. So I'll go to interfaces, Powerline, open it, PLC, and now I'm going to dump the old key. So I'm going to go leave. And I'm going to activate sync again on here. And then I should be able to hit join. Here we go. Let's hit leave again. Okay, apply. Now I'm going to hit sync on here. And let's go join. And it should find the key from this.
I just don't know if I want to play it on my base PS4.
Come on. These guys are a little finicky, aren't they? Did you finally detect? Let's hit apply and hope that it syncs. Looks like it might have. Yes. Okay, we've got sync. Perfect. So now there's two of these guys on here. Alright, this is my first time dealing with these guys, so let's just check something here. Do we have firewall entries? No, we don't. Great. Let's see if it got an IP address from the router. DHCP client. Yes, it's got an IP address. Perfect. We're going to make these guys 2 and 3. So I'm just going to, I'll label these things after because we've got to get them going wherever they got to go. So wherever I stick them in the house, I will label them so that later on I can log into the main router and detect where they are. But one of the things I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go into Tools, Roman, and I'm going to enable that, which is going to allow me to gain access to it later easily. And now, since I'm already plugged into the network, I'm going to pull an IP address from this Powerline unit right here. And now I should be able to see all the devices on here. And there they are. So I was just in the one unit, which has been on for 325. What was it, 62? So I'm going to click on this one now, and I'm going to enable Roman on it. Cool. Tools. Roman. Whoops. So I'm going to set both these APs up the same way. There we go. Tools, Roman, enabled. And I'm going to go into the IP services, and I'm going to disable everything we don't need, like I showed you. This is just a good practice thing. There we go. And API, SSL, so all that stuff's disabled. Perfect. So that's one. On the packages, system packages, we can get rid of everything we don't need. So we're not going to need hotspot, MPLS, PPP, that can all go. So we'll just disable that. Alright, good. So that one's essentially done. Now, I'm going to give this whole kit internet. That way, we can do some software updates on these, because you do want the latest long-term active on here. There we go. So this thing should pull an IP address, which means this guy should be able to get the internet. So let's go to System, Packages, check for updates. Let's see here. DHCP client. Yeah, it should work. Oh, you know what? Let me check something here. You know, I could script this and look like an expert, but there are no experts. I prefer that when you watch this video, after stumbling through it yourself, you see that you're not a moron and that you're normal, and you had to stumble through it yourself too. I'm going into the main router, and I'm going to IP DNS, and I'm checking to make sure that Allow Remote Requests is enabled. And now I'm going to go to the IP DHCP client and make sure that it got an IP address and a DNS. If that's the case, let me just check the packages on here and see if I can go, if I can update them on here. System packages, check for updates. Perfect, there is. Now I'm not going to do current. I'm going to go bug fix only. This is an old one. Bug fix is also the same as long term. We're going to go download and install. So I'll update the main router first. And we'll watch this here as it updates. Well, since you guys can actually see what I'm doing all here, now we're getting in the meat of this. I'm going to bring the camera down a little bit so you can actually see the screen a little bit more. Let's see.
Seriously want me to go around the way and I can't cross the water this way?
There.
Is it like up on the hill?
Again, I'd love to get another camera, a better camera. 2 cameras would be great. Alright. Let's wait for this thing to reboot. And then, there's actually 2 parts to updating these guys, by the way. For anybody who's not familiar with Mikrotik, you need to update the firmware on the Mikrotik, and then you need to update the actual core firmware, which is for the board itself. So after this guy reboots and it shows up in the list here, we'll be able to go into System, Router Board, and we'll be able to actually update the core firmware. This is kind of sweet, by the way. Isn't it kind of cool what I've got going on here? I've been trying to figure out how I can show you guys computer stuff rather than using OBS, because I don't want to... I'm lazy. That's why I try to do one-take splices or videos, because, like, if I have to switch over to that computer and go to OBS, and I've got to splice that in, and I got to take all this stuff and splice that in, and I friggin' hate doing that. I'd rather just cut out all the shitty parts and just have one long-running video. Okay, so clearly this thing does not have a ton of CPU. And it's still booting up.
No, I think later, like ice cold, I can't feel my feet, so.
Alright, looks like it's coming online now. I wish every Mikrotik router had a beeper in it. That'd be awesome. Okay, connect. Alright, so now we're up to date for firmware. We're at 6446. Watch. We go to, oh yeah, I gotta disable the stuff we don't need. We don't need MPLS. We don't need hotspot. We may need PPP. Yeah, we might need PPP, so I'll just close that now. We'll close this now. You know, clean up our workspace. Boop. Boop. There we go. Okay, system, packet, no, sorry, router board. Wow, this thing's running 3.41 firmware. Ouch. Let's bring it up to a more current release. There we go. And now we need to reboot it one more time to actually install the new core firmware. Yes, reboot the router. Here we go. I wish I knew where the rest of my cool picks were. These Perlex or Perloid runs. I had a Neil Young one that was really cool. I also had a Skinnerd one. And I thought it was really funny that the Neil Young one was green and Skinnerd was red. I want to, like, tape them together. That'd be really funny. Or would that be kind of warped? I'll leave it to you to decide. Alright, so it's still booting up. Let's check the indicators on here. I'm kind of half disappointed that this thing's dumb. I really was kind of excited to get into that thing and see what kind of settings it would have on it, but clearly we're not allowed. Alright, here we go. I'm going to log in here. Alright, so now the firmware is all up to date. I'm going to fix the firewall settings. These basic firewall settings are more than enough for a home user. It's got its general drop all rule, and then you've got to allow stuff through it if you want stuff to actually get out to the world, like if you want port forwards and stuff. So this is a really good basic firewall for most people. Here we go. So we're just going to quickly configure the Wi-Fi on the main router here. So I'm going to go to wireless, and we're going to first of all create a password. So I'm going to go to security profiles, and I'm just going to pick the default one. I think my finger's better, by the way. Let's try that. Okay, let's enter that. So for the default, I'm going to use dynamic keys, and I'm just going to use WPA2. Apple devices don't like WPA PSK for some reason. They say it's not secure. I'm just going to put a placeholder password in here for now and hit OK. Now we can go over to the Wi-Fi interfaces. So I'm going to go to the 2 gig first, which is the number 1. And let's see here, wireless. Yep, that's definitely the 2 gig. So we've got our default everything in here. When we're ready, we're going to set this for the home Wi-Fi. So I'm just going to put my house. There we go. And we need to change this to the proper country, which apparently it doesn't have my country. I live in Canada, but apparently there's only United States 3. Oh, that's cute. But, oh yeah, not all of our channels are in there. Wow. Alright, well, because this thing doesn't support Canada, which is very stupid, I'm going to have to go to... Yeah, it's completely locked out. So it looks like I accidentally bought an American model, which I will definitely need to talk to my wholesaler about that, because my wholesaler's here in Canada, and I specifically buy Canadian equipment for this reason, because in America there's less frequencies available on our equipment. So Hap AC Light, it's the US model, yeah, so it looks like I won't be able to get the upper 2 gig bands, which is kind of disappointing, but whatever. Let's continue on. Alright, so let's see here. And by the way, if you want to try to get these things unlocked for other countries, it can't happen. Mikrotik is not very accommodating for this. I have tried. Alright, so we're going to go over here. We're going to just name this one My House as well. I try to make the 5 gig and the 2 gig exactly the same, because any devices that will utilize 5 gig will just jump to the 5 gig first. Just makes it easier that way. Correct me if I'm wrong. So the Wi-Fi is basically configured on here. Now we need to make sure that it's the same on the other devices. So I'm going to go over to these guys here. And actually, sorry, one more thing. I'm all over the place here. I got kind of thrown off by this unit being locked to America. Identity. Let's set the identity on here. So we'll call this one living room. There we go. There we go. Simple enough. It's identified now. And I do believe that I enabled Roman on here. There we go. It's enabled. And by the way, when you enable Roman, make sure that you go under Discovery. Stop. Discovery. Ports. There we go. Sorry. You need to go under Ports. You need to add a forbid rule for your Ethernet port. Because you don't, or sorry, your WAN port. If you don't add that on your WAN port, then somebody might be able to detect it with a Mikrotik from the internet, and you don't want that. You really only need to do that on your main router. Okay, that pretty much goes with any, or for any router. Okay, now I'm back over to I think 6.2 was this bottom one here. The bottom one by the goat. You know, the goat. All right, so we'll go over to this guy here. And I'm just going to plan ahead and call this one upstairs, because this one's probably going to go up in the bedrooms. So I'm going to go System Identity, and I'm going to go Bedrooms. Okay, we're going to go to the wireless. The wireless adapter in these little guys, by the way, is slightly different. It's only SISO, but that's pretty standard with most of these Powerline kits. Honestly, if you find a MIMO adapter, which means multi-in, multi-out. It's got 2 input and output streams rather than CISO, which only has 1 input and output stream. They'll work with this. Any Powerline kit will work with this guy right here. So you can get like a better access point for your house, but I'm trying to keep all the kit the same. So I've got into the default security profile here, and I'm going to make the password exactly the same. This is key. Done. Okay, then we're going to go over to the Wi-Fi interface. Enter. Wireless. And let's make this SSID exactly the same too. There we go. I wonder if this one's... This one may be international. Let me just check the wireless protocol, security profile. It's at advanced mode. Country. Ha! So this one is Canadian. Or, sorry, international. So I can use this one. Because I guess there's some weird laws where American hardware has to be locked so that it can only be used in America. It's a new stupid law that's been kind of in place for a little while with certain things, but apparently it's going across everything now, including Ubiquiti gear. So this one's now set for America, or sorry, Canada. We've got the right profile, so that one's done now. I think that's everything for this one. We're going to set the username and password on these shortly, by the way. I'm going to do it with the main router first. Okay, let's go to 252 now. You can streamline this too, but I'm trying to like do a workflow that you guys would find fairly simple. Alright, so here we go. So we're going to go to our wireless. We're going to go to the security profile here as well. Make sure that it's Apple compatible. So we're going dynamic mode, WPA2, and then put in the same password that you put in everywhere else. There we go. Enter. Go to the wireless interface. Open it. Wireless. Advanced. Choose the country. C is for Canada. Okay. And set your SSID. There we go. And now we're going to set the identifier for this unit under System, Identity. And this one is going to be called Office. Alright, so now that that's all set, the firmware on this one's kind of old. So now this one, we're going to start the firmware update on here. There we go. So I can go to System Packages. Check for updates. Now it's found it, see? So we're going to, again, go from current to bug fix because it's old. Download and install. And while we're doing that, I'm going to open another Winbox here and go back to the main router for a second. Let's show you guys. I might actually get booted out, but I'm going to show you guys where you go and set the password on here. So if you go System, Users, you never want to have the admin password active on any equipment that's internet facing, because the admin password is the first password that people try to attack. That's what they do. And once you put that new username in, by the way, sorry about that, you would disable admin. Okay, so you'd go X, not minus, and disable the admin account. Once you disable the admin account, then the hackers don't have anything they can target, because they typically try to target the default username. With any router, whether it's a Mikrotik, a Ubiquiti, a D-Link, an Asus, a Linksys, a Belkin, a Netgear, a generic Chinese one, if you run a scan on it using a program called Nmap, which does, it supports scanner. It also does OS fingerprinting. And if you don't have your router locked down, which most of them aren't for consumer grade, it can fingerprint the OS. And then once the attacker knows what operating system is running on your router, they can know what the default username and password is, and then they can use that. They'll target admin or Asus or Ubnt. You know, they'll know what the default username is and start targeting it and hammering it until they finally get through. And most of the time, people don't set them, so the hackers win. Alright, so this router is pretty much good to go. Let's just do the final updates on the access points here. Okay, so this is the one that I just updated. We just need to do the core firmware like I showed you. So this one's up to date. I'm going to close that. System. Router board. And upgrade. Yes, upgrade firmware. There we go. And then we'll just do a reboot on that. System. Reboot. That will bring the firmware up to date. And when I get this into the customer's house and they start using the API on their cell phone or tablet or whatever to see what's going on and have the kid control for disabling the kids when they go to bed and whatnot, I'm going to lock down the API. I'll give the parents we'll give them a fixed DHCP IP, so I can go into the leases and actually assign a static IP. That IP will be the only one that will have access to the equipment internally, and then of course I have to give myself external access. So now we've got one more. Here we go. There we go. So with me though, I typically set up a VPN that will call out from this guy here to one of my management routers, which then allows me to remotely administrate the network. I have a separate management router, and I have a separate management service for Dude, which allows me to monitor clients. So if somebody has a, let's see here, bug fix only, if somebody has a small office or home equipment that they bought from me, that goes into the residential grade monitoring system, which allows me to remotely minute, remotely update, save them if they bugger their stuff up, and help them with troubleshooting. Otherwise, for my business clients, they all connect into my business network, which is a separate network altogether. Okay, so downloaded. We'll go system update this time, or system reboot, sorry. Dun dun dun. Are we getting on to an hour yet? This is, you see, I'm going to be editing the main video down. The one that I'm recording right now with this microphone and this camera. So yeah, all of you guys watching me on live stream, I hope I'm not too boring. But I cut a lot of this crap out so that it's not as boring and not as long on the internet. Okay, so this guy should be rebooting right now. Perfect. We'll give it a second. And as soon as it comes back up, we're good. And then, yeah, this kit's pretty much ready to go. I can take this and I'll take pictures, and I'll see if the client will let me film video when I'm installing it at the home. And if I do, then I'll throw the video into this, obviously, and make it a little bit longer. And you guys can see how we set it up in the house itself. So that'll be kind of cool. I should start carrying a GoPro. Okay, so this little guy still hasn't booted up yet. Man, when you reload the OS on these things, it can take a little bit of time. Still booting. Ugh. Hurry up. I'm ADHD. PL64112ND. Yeah, cool. Yeah, it's still booting. Oh, there it is. It just restarted, so it should pop up in here in just a second. There it is. Okay. By the way, I lied. There's still one more step I need to do. I'm kind of scatterbrained. Alright, so we're going to go System, Router Board. And this actually isn't quite as old as the other one. So we're going to upgrade the firmware on here now. So this isn't the OS, this is the actual core firmware. And we're going to reboot this. Yes. Alright, it's going to boot me out. Close this window. Now let's go back to the main router, and there's one little tiny baby thing I really want to do. Once you know what equipment's going to be in a house and what's going to be in place, you can go to IP, Dhcp Server. I'm going to maximize this. And let's see here, we will drag this over. So 251. I'm going to hit enter on that, and I'm going to go make static. And now I'm going to hit enter on it again, and I'm going to label that. So 62 is that one right there. I'm going to make this one .5, and then the other access point is going to be .6. I don't necessarily have to add a comment because it should show me in, oops, it should show me in the name there, active host name. There we go, labeled. And now we're going to do the same one for, or same thing for the second little bad boy right here. Make static, enter again. Okay, and we're going to make this one .6. And then we're going to add a comment, and this one here is office, so. There you go. And then the, let's see here. Workshop. Why am I seeing workshop on here? Oh, hold on a second. Workshop is that switch. Switch is this. Okay. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the gist of it. That's really all you need to do. I'm going to do some final security things on this thing when it's installed at the customer's place that I don't want you guys seeing. Well, it's not that I don't want you to see it. It's just that, you know what I mean. The wrong eyes could be watching this video, and then they'll know some of my security tricks that they can use to compromise equipment. But I typically lock this stuff down. So there you go. That is the gist of it. That is a really handy little residential router kit. So you don't have to run cables all over the house, but yet you can still actually get decent Wi-Fi coverage with decent throughputs. And don't forget, these kits are capable of up to 600 megabits per second. Jesus, how many windows do I have open? So, yeah, and you can mix and match them. Now, with them being 600 megabit per second compatible, here we go. They have these Ethernet ports on them. So typically, here's the trick that I use for deploying these guys. So here's these two right here. I'm going to disconnect the internet from this one now. And we're going to disconnect this from the switch. And we're going to disconnect this from the computer. So here's our little kit that's going to go on the wall. So what I would do is this one's going to go in the living room by the TV so that you can plug in your TV and other stuff, game consoles and stuff into it, right? And then it'll be on the wall nicely like this. It'll be very pretty. Then I would put this one in the office and hook up a network switch to it for the computers in the office to connect to. And then the other one's going to go up in the bedroom. But I'll stick it in behind the TV in the bedroom so that the Android box on the TV can plug into that. Now we've got a hardwired connection for all the streaming media and for all the devices in the home. And what you end up with is a wicked little kit that doesn't cost you wiring. And remember, folks, all you guys complaining about Powerline kits, you just need to use them enough to get to know how to do it. There's kind of a gut thing. Do not put them on power bars. Do not put them on wall blocks that give you 6 plugs. Don't put them on extension cords, typically. And you can get away with it, but don't. Sometimes, depending on the house, if there's really wonky electrical, it will not cross phases very well. And remember, if you're trying to put one of these in a garage, unless the garage is fed from the same panel that's inside the house, it's not going to work. If it's one of those centrally metered places where you've got a hydro pole in the yard, and then there's a feed going to the house, and a feed going to the barn, and a feed going to the garage, these things won't go, they won't do that. They will not cross the hydrometer because there's just too much stuff, and of course, because there's coils in the hydrometer for driving it, for current measurement, it will kill this signal entirely. So that's basically it, folks. There you go. This is a cool little home distributed Wi-Fi kit for residential customers that does not require any additional wire pulling inside of the house. CPE coming from your network plugs into here. This PoE port will power that radio on the outside of the building. This port here is the PoE in, which comes from the Powerline Master unit. And then, yeah, that gives you 3 LAN ports right there. Pretty cool, eh?
Okay, guys. So, earlier in the video, of course, I showed you guys this wicked little distributed Wi-Fi kit for a residential home. Like, not a cheap kit, but it'll do the job, and it's what these guys needed. So anyway, looking at this, this is where the actual internet connection comes from. So the tricky part here is that the neighbors across the way, these guys are both on a back road, but the people who have the fiber at their home are up on top of a hill far from the other neighbor. They're down a long laneway on a farm, and so the local incumbent was able to run fiber to this home, GPON. And here you can see the Calyx ONT module here. So basically the local incumbent was nice enough to assign one of these Ethernet ports on the ONT to the neighbor across the road and let them have their account reside here. Okay, so what you're looking at here is not our equipment. It's not our mess. We don't have the authorization to touch it because it is actually at the neighbor's house, and we don't want to interfere and maybe cause problems with the incumbent or whatnot, so we just did our thing and walked away. So what we did here was the incumbent assigned us port 3. So we brought that with some Cat 6 down to the PoE pack here, and then from the PoE pack out to the Ubiquity surge suppressor here, which is grounded to the electrical panel, as you can see here. We also grounded the ONT because the ONT actually wasn't grounded at all. And then from there, the other port on the surge suppressor goes outside and down the property to the actual point-to-point link. So yeah, everything here, this was just how we found it. This coil here, surge suppressor, and Cat 6 is all our stuff. So now looking at a close-up of this, you can see here, yeah, we've just got the ground lug, just a copper ground lug on the number 10 screw that goes into the electrical panel here. It's basically the best ground we can get because I couldn't actually find the grounding wire that goes outside to the ground rod or plate, which I think is actually behind the panel. So this is a really common practice in Canada, and it's perfectly acceptable. Usually you can use a panel clip on the corner of the panel to ground the equipment, but it should be grounded properly like this. The actual point-to-point is grounded itself because they literally pounded a steel pole into the ground. So yeah, you can see the surge suppressor here, grounded. The outside point-to-point comes in here to this port here, and the other one goes down to the PoE. So we're intercepting the exterior connection before it actually enters the PoE. Then from the PoE, it leaves to the ONT. So that's the first little part here. And by the way, always leave a coil, not only for maintenance in case you need to do something, but it's an old ham radio trick where it'll help you induce voltages out. So now on to the next slide here, we will look at the this one here. Alright, so here's our point-to-point link. You can see what we're dealing with here. This pole is on top of a hill behind their farm. The property owner with the fiber, way up on top of a hill. So we're able to actually shoot down to the customer's home who was not able to get any fiber. So if you look here, we're just using the Ubiquity Lightbeam AP Gen 2, which actually I'm kind of surprised at the performance I'm seeing from them for something called Light Beam. That's like less than $100 Canadian. I mean, this is pretty decent. And by the way, if you wonder why ISPs charge so much for these dishes, is because they have to cover their costs. So don't get upset if somebody charges you $120 for the dish, because they have to make money too, okay? So anyway, you've got your pole here. Your cables are zip tied coming down, and right now the cable is actually coiled here, and then it goes down into the snow back to the house. So this is fastened with a pipe clamp fairly tightly up here, and of course we've got a service loop at the top and a small service loop at the bottom. Everything's zip tied down the pole. That pole was previously pounded into the ground. It's actually a 10-foot pole with 6 feet out, so 4 feet's actually pounded into the dirt. I love Windows so much. No, I don't. Windows, we're going to get in your face as much as we can. Alright, so here we go. So here is the receiving side, the customer's place. They'd already put bands on the chimney, so that's a chimney mount kit with a very light 1-inch mast pipe. We were able to actually stick this point-to-point here. It's going to need to be moved to the spring, but it's there temporarily because they're actually renovating the whole house, which means tearing half the house off and then putting new house on. They're expanding it to make it look really nice. So with the furnace running, it's actually a high efficiency furnace, so it's only really warm air that's coming off of this. It's not actually heat or a fireplace, otherwise that would destroy this dish. And one of the wonderful things, which I've seen before, is if it is a fireplace, the soot will just accumulate on this dish, and eventually, depending on what they burn, sometimes the carbon content can be high enough to actually affect the connection. But we're shooting 600 meters across the street. to get this connection, and that dish is again going to be put on a tower in the spring. It is winter here in Ontario, Canada, and the conditions are not amazing for climbing or digging. So that's how we're getting the signal across. So we're shooting from the back of the property, 200 feet away from the property owner's home with the fiber, down the hill to this home across the street with another Ubiquiti Light Beam Gen 2. Okay, so now let's go into the house now and take a look what I did in the house. Sorry, I am really congested with this god-awful cold. Now, keep in mind, remember, these guys are renovating, so all the wonderful, pretty things that I wanted to do were not options right now because they are literally just starting to tear the house out. So, what we've got is, here's our Powerline Master, the Mikrotik Powerline Master. This guy plugs into the electrical wall outlet, and then a grounded, shielded Cat5 cable goes out to the Hap AC, and then from there we've got another connection coming out on port 5 on the Hap, which is the PoE out going out to feed that dish that I showed you on the roof. The other ports there are essentially just for the devices at the TV stand, and the cable that's actually running from the Powerline Master is also the power feed for the Hap and the dish outside, so it's providing all the power. It's actually plugged into port 1. So what I ended up doing was I ended up making port 1 part of the LAN bridge and port 5 as the WAN port. Okay? What I wanted to do with these guys is mount them both on the wall, nice and tidy, so that both of them had the ports facing down and there was a single shielded jumper going between the two. Now, why would I go shielded? Yes, there's a surge suppressor on this line, but with the dish being plugged into port 5 on the Hap here, we want to be able to carry the ground across through the Hap back to the Powerline Master, which will actually allow the ground to carry through just for any kind of ESD, not any kind of lightning relief at all, because that would just turn the whole thing into a blackened mess. So there's the Powerline Master there, just sitting on the floor where the cables are coming in. When they renovate the home, this is going to be mounted to the wall with the ports here facing down. Here we go. And that will be the same with the Hap AC light. That'll be mounted on the wall with the ports facing down. There's two of these little guys. Sorry the picture isn't great, it was very dark, but you get the idea. There's two of these in the house as well. So the way that the system is set up is that this guy here is central in the home. It's on the TV stand. So it's dual band 2 gig, 5 gig. And it's broadcasting near the TV stand to pick up the core of the house. Then the add-on office, which is like an additional building built into the home, has one of these guys in it. When they're done renovating, a network switch will plug into this as well, and it will allow the computers and printer to all connect directly to this. So this guy here is actually using the electrical circuit in the house to carry the Ethernet data. It's actually a hardline connection, and also an AP. So the whole idea with this AP here is you can put, as many of these as you want, really. I think up to about 20? I think it's 20. Don't quote me on that, but go look at the friggin' data sheet. So there's one here in the office and one upstairs in the bedrooms. That's why you don't see the picture. The other one is for privacy purposes. But essentially, you use these to get your quote-unquote CISO wireless signal around the house. These are 2 gig only, which is good and bad. I mean, for people who are watching like videos and just basic streaming stuff like YouTube and some light Netflix and stuff, it's perfectly fine. Especially if you have a few of these APs around the house. If you have anything like an Android box or any kind of TV or multimedia system, even gaming, you can plug straight into these guys. So realistically, not only are they just distributing Wi-Fi for basic IoT things like tablets or potentially smart home stuff, which usually all works on 2.4 gig, by the way, it gives you a hard line, which will give you at least 100 megs on a good connection back to the Powerline Master for any kind of heavy media or streaming devices. So really the light capacity Wi-Fi that comes off of these is kind of a moot point, because you have a couple of these in the home. Any light roaming devices like cell phones or tablets or all that are going to be able to use these guys to the best of their potential anyway. So, alright, so that's the system. That is basically all there is to it. You got to see the point-to-point, you got to see the video of me programming and setting up the equipment, and you got to see the fiber feed coming in. So this is a handy little kit for any of you guys who want to essentially go into a home without having to run cables and set up distributed Wi-Fi throughout the house to cover the whole building without using mesh or repeaters, because in my opinion, I'm not a big fan of mesh or repeaters. The problem with mesh is that you're relying on the second radio in the unit. So if you're lucky, the mesh equipment that you're using will have a dual band radio. So you'll have like one radio that's 5 gig or one radio that's 2.4. The 5 gig radio now becomes the backhaul. So it ends up talking to the other devices, creating a mesh so that it can free up the 2.4 for your devices to connect to. The problem with mesh or with repeaters is that every time you connect another repeater, you're halving your connection capability. And if you're using that backhaul connection as a access point connection for devices as well, that's going to be detrimental to it as well. And you'll end up opening it up to like 80 plus megahertz, 40, 80 megahertz, which is going to eat up a lot of spectrum. And if you're a WISP providing high speed to this home, that can affect your equipment depending on what you're using. So that's why I recommend Powerline. It's cleaner. You don't have to worry about the effects of crappy radios that are going to halve their connections every time you connect to them. You don't have to worry about RF interference. If you set up the Powerline kit properly, which honestly, I've had 99% success with these Powerline kits, and I've done so many of them from TP-Link to now Mikrotik with no problems at all. This, I believe, is a superior method to moving data around a house if you don't have the luxury of running cable, hardwiring. So there you go, guys. You can get all this stuff from Mikrotik, from your Mikrotik wholesaler, and yeah, set this up throughout a house. So thanks for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day. Like and subscribe, tell your friends, whatever. I'm almost at 800 subs at this point, which is kind of exciting because I'm a very niche channel, not something that the average viewer would crawl into. This is more or less just for you guys in the ISP community. Alright, so we shall catch you later, and have a great day.